Hey guys, I recently had someone ask if I could make a video about how to set up WordPress in Docker to work with Cloudflare tunnels. So that's what we're going to do in today's video. Just know that this video will assume that you have a general understanding of how to deploy a Docker container, as well as general knowledge of what a Cloudflare tunnel is and how to set one up. If you're not sure about either of those topics, I will have links in the description with more information. But before we get into setting up WordPress with Cloudflare tunnels, here's a quick message from today's video sponsor. This video is sponsored by Linode. I've been partnered with Linode for quite a while now because it's a great place to host just about anything you could want to host. Need a dedicated space to host an app? Linode has you covered with more than 100 pre-built apps that can be installed with just a couple of clicks. Want to develop an app on your favorite flavor of Linux? Linode has you covered there too, with more than 30 different options to start with. Need to do some pen testing on your own network or app? Install a Kali Linux setup in just a few clicks to get started with testing your own security. You can also host a Docker setup, a Kubernetes cluster, and more with just a few clicks. From hosting a single website to complex multi-cloud deployments, find enterprise-level capabilities like object storage, Kubernetes, and GPUs at a 30 to 50% lower cost than the major cloud providers. Be sure to check out the link in the video description to get $100 in free credit for 60 days to see what you can do with Linode. Now, I've covered both how to install WordPress and Docker, as well as how to set up Cloudflare tunnels. So when this question was posed to me about this, I was kind of confused. How hard could this possibly be? It's about as straightforward as you can get, I thought. Now, there are two ways that this could go. You could spin up your WordPress container with a database, create a tunnel over Cloudflare with a domain name and all of the stuff that goes in creating a tunnel, and then go to the URL and everything works just fine. Yay! Or you could go through what I initially went through. I spun up a WordPress container using Docker-compose in command line, and I just used the default information provided in WordPress's hub.docker.com page. And of course, you can change the port and storage as necessary for your setup. And I actually prefer to use mapped storage for setups like this rather than using Docker volumes. It's just easier to manage things from my experience, and I would highly suggest changing the usernames and passwords of the database, as well as the database name in both parts of the Docker-compose. Then I logged into Cloudflare, headed over to the Zero Trust section of their website, and configured a new tunnel. I gave it a name, installed the tunnel agent for Debian. You can use Docker if you want for this, but I prefer the Debian method for my setup. And then I created my subdomain and attached my subdomain name. Now, I should also mention that the subdomain part of this is optional. You can just use the straight domain name, or you can add a subdomain to this if you'd like. Then I changed the service type to HTTP, and I put in the IP address and port and clicked Save Hostname. Next, I went to the URL that I had set up only to be greeted with this message explaining that there's an issue connecting to the database. No kidding, I haven't set up WordPress yet. I looked through the container logs for WordPress, and that didn't actually help any. And honestly, I was so confused, I just walked away for a bit. A few days later, I came back and figured that coming back with a clear head would fix the issue, right? I spun up a WordPress container using Docker-compose in command line, and I just used the default information provided in WordPress's hub.docker.com page. Then I logged into Cloudflare, headed over to the Zero Trust section of their website, and configured a new tunnel. And then I created my subdomain and attached my subdomain name. Next, I went to the URL that I had set up only to be greeted with this message explaining that there's an issue connecting to the database. So because I was seeing a very similar, if not the exact same thing I saw before, I decided to do some troubleshooting. And so what I did was went to the local IP address of the container, and the install script started, and I was asked to choose my install language. Well, that's weird, I thought. So I grabbed the part of the URL that was added to the IP address and the port, which is that wp-admin/install.php, and I went back to my URL page and tacked it onto the domain name. And there it is. Now I can complete the installation process of WordPress in Docker using a Cloudflare tunnel. So based on my experience, there's about a 50-50 shot as to whether or not a URL will work by default using Cloudflare tunnels with WordPress. I tried multiple times to see what would happen, and sometimes I got the error message of no database or database configuration error, and the other half of the time it just worked fine. So that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, is that it is, like I said, kind of a 50-50 shot on which which response you're going to get from your browser. And from my experience, the easiest way to fix this is to just, if you get that database connection issue, just go to the end of your URL and type on the wp-admin/install.php, and that should get the installation prompt to start. At that point, you can just put in your title, your admin email address, username, password, that kind of stuff, and just complete the installation process as you would expect to complete the installation process for a WordPress install in Docker. With all of that said, I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, do me a favor, give the video a thumbs up. That really does help me out quite a bit. Also, if you'd like to get ad-free access to my content when it's available, which is almost all of the time, you can head down to the links in the description where you can become a YouTube channel member, you can join my Patreon, or you can become a member of dbtech.fans. Any of those methods will give you access to my content early in some cases, but always completely ad-free. So with all of that said, I am going to go ahead and wrap up this video. I do want to thank you guys for spending a few minutes of your day with me today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.